Welcome. My name is Jon Eckhardt. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I am also a co-founder of Generator, which is a seed investment fund and business accelerator located in Wisconsin. And I'm an editor at the Entrepreneur and Innovation Exchange. We are very fortunate to have with us Eric Martell, who is one of the co-founders of EatStreet, which is a company located in Madison, Wisconsin. Eric, thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy to be here, John.
I'd like to start with the very beginning. Were there any telltale signs early on in your life that made you think that maybe you might become an entrepreneur?
I think my parents would say yes. As a really little kid, I was always playing with Legos and Tinker Toys and trying to build things. Just kind of a lot of kids in the neighborhood, my best friends growing up, they would go out to the store and they would buy a sword or whatever to play knights with. But for me, it was always about kind of building that out of something. So from a pretty early day, I always kind of had crazy ideas, really loved, the process of building something out of nothing. I think it drove some of my high school teachers crazy in the process because I was always asking why. But I definitely have always wanted to build a company, and it's been the ride of a lifetime doing so.
And can you tell us about your decision to become to become an entrepreneur? Was there a single point in time where you said, or you realized, like, now I'm going to do this?
Well, I mean, the inception of EatStreet is a really great example of that. So EatStreet allows people to connect with the restaurants in their area and place orders online. My kind of entrepreneurial streak came out when I ordered a sub from a restaurant. And the driver showed up, and he basically said, it would be great if we had an online ordering solution. And it was kind of at that moment in time that I thought, hey, I'm a computer science major at school. I'm roommates with a phenomenal sales guy who, really could connect with all the restaurants in the area. Why don't we do something like this? I mean, the guy basically asked us to come out with a solution. So that was kind of the moment when I knew that I had an idea that we could really run with, and the rest was history.
And were there other ventures like before that, like lemonade stand or something like that, that then kind of gave you some sense that you knew what you were getting into?
Sure. Well, I mean, certainly had no idea of what was in store. That much is for sure. It's funny, we always expected basically to start this business. We joke about it now as a blurb to put on our resume to get a job sometime in the future. So it wasn't necessarily something that I was planning on doing for the rest of my life, and it really took off. With regards to lemonade stands and other things that way, I had as many as the next kid as a kid growing up. I think my parents, I was pretty much footed the cost of the lemonade. We'd make like 75 cents after being out in the hot sun all day. But in high school, I was involved with a lot of different student organizations. I was really kind of wanted to go after a leadership position, and then got pretty involved in college as well. So I always have liked to be part of organizations that are doing things.
Tell us about the initial moments of when EatStreet started.
Sure. We always joke, our co-founders at this point, that the first two Google searches that we ran were, how do you make a website and how do you register a business? So we were coming into this completely naive as to the entire process. We had a vision for what we wanted to build, but not necessarily the knowledge at that given moment in time of how to get from point A to point B. So really, ultimately, what it came down to in the early days, it continues to be to this day, is taking the big problems and breaking them into much smaller problems. So Matt, our CEO, learned what an LLC was and how to register a company. I took a couple classes online that taught me HTML and how to build a website along with our other co-founder, Alex. And we just attacked the problems in a pretty linear fashion. But it was definitely a daunting experience in the very early days, because at that point we were three 19-year-olds who really didn't have a great idea of, we had no practice. It was all just kind of this vision that we were striving towards, and we didn't even necessarily know if we were really making good progress towards it or not, because we had nothing to gauge it against. But it was just kind of the belief that if we actually could put together a company that could accomplish this, it would be really a great, story and success for all of us.
And did you ever say to yourself, or as a group, did you say to yourselves, we don't know what we're doing, so we probably shouldn't do this?
There was a little bit of that. And to this day, one thing that we always try to do is maintain a very narrow focus for what our company does. Every single day, we look at the possibility, hey, could we go into daily deals with restaurants? Or just, I mean, are there other avenues that we could explore? And we always say to ourselves, we want to be really, really, really good at doing what our company currently does. And that's not at the expense of innovating. So within the food ordering space, we're really committed to improving, to trying out methods, to basically pushing the technology to let people order their food more easily. But I think clarity of focus always kind of helped us in those early days. And we knew in the early days we need a website. We also knew that we didn't need just other, kind of strategies. And so every single day in the early days when we were trying to figure out how to launch the business, it was asking ourselves, well, is this something that we actually need to launch EatStreet? And that kind of was a guiding compass as we progressed towards actually getting our website out to the public and then growing the business ever since.
And so how do you describe EatStreet to your customers? If you're knocking on the door of a restaurant and you're saying you should sign up with EatStreet, what do you tell them? And if I'm a customer and I'm looking for food to buy, like why should I use EatStreet?
Well, I'll start with the restaurant. When we're talking to a restaurant, over 90% of our businesses are sole proprietorships, locally owned restaurants, not part of Pizza Hut or the Domino's chains. And these are restaurant owners, typically on college campuses, who know that the students are very invested into technology. I mean, they see people walking into the restaurant every day on their smartphones. And at the same time, I mean, their expertise is making really good food. It's not necessarily the technology. So we basically walk in and say, hey, we can level the playing field between you and the Pizza Hut across the street. We can provide you with all of the technology you need to maintain a strong online presence and accept orders online. We take care of that. You take care of what you're good at. And restaurants have candidly been very receptive to it. We have over 15,000 restaurants that we're partnered with at this point. As a student, the proposition is, hey, when you go to the mall, you look around the food court and you kind of figure out what you want to eat at that point. We're bringing that online. If you're in Madison, Wisconsin, and you put in your address, you're going to see 250 restaurants that deliver to you, all with one login, with one payment source. You don't need to go to pizzahut.com and papajohns.com anymore. Everything that you're looking for is going to be on eatstreet.com. And for students, I mean, that convenience factor has always been kind of the driving force. And at this point, we estimate that on our stronger campuses, we have anywhere between 25 and 50% of the student body using our service.
What excites you about working on EatStreet? Are like the technical challenges? Is it the solution that you're providing? Like what's the thing that makes you most excited about it?
You know, honestly, John, people have always said that I'm kind of interested in everything. That's kind of what makes me tick. But I'm an engineer by background. Alex, our CTO, leads the product development at this point a little bit more than I do, but I love the engineering challenges, and new technologies get me very excited, and I relish the moments that I'm involved in that entire process. Likewise, I think that the process of serving people and the desires of what people want out of a service is as equally interesting, if not more interesting. So thinking, what can I do to make the restaurants more successful, to streamline their processes so that basically the restaurant can grow and that they're happy that they signed up with our service and it's driving more revenue to them. And for students, what magical process can we implement within the company? What are the new features that we're looking for that are going to make people even more excited to go and use our product? So honestly, from A to Z, everything from the finance to the engineering has gotten me excited in the past.
And what were some of the most defining make or break moments for you in EatStreet?
Well, for me personally, we started this business when we were juniors. Our CEO, Matt, went full-time after he graduated in 4 years. Much to my parents' dismay, I took a full 5 years to graduate from school. And the moment of deciding whether or not I wanted to take job offers or go full-time kind of pursuing the dream with EatStreet was a really defining moment for me. And basically doing that was, a dream come true, but definitely took a little bit of closing your eyes and jumping into the deep end of the pool. For EatStreet as a company, I remember the moment that we received our first order that wasn't from our core group of friends. It was on the day that we launched. We had 25 orders that day. 24 of them were from our best friends. And one of them was from a random name. And watching that order go through the system and thinking, oh my gosh, we actually caused some person who I've never met personally to, the food's going to magically show up on his doorstep now, and he finds this service really worthwhile. That was an incredible eye-opening moment for me because we had no idea if people were going to use the service or not when we launched it. Getting to the 1,000th order, the 10,000th order, 100,000th, millionth order, I mean, all of those were similar. It's like, wow, we've impacted a lot of people in the process. And then finally, of course, as the company has grown from a small team to a larger team, and we're up to about 80 employees at this point, that's been really eye-opening. Just thinking, hey, it's really, really cool that at this point these jobs exist to basically support kind of the system that we build with EatStreet. So I don't know, there have been a lot of defining moments. It's cool because if you wake up in the morning, you can usually focus on something very positive to kind of keep you motivated.
So who was the first restaurant that signed up?
The first restaurant that signed up was A8 China on University Avenue. And Matt went in, and I was kind of hanging out in the neighborhood, but Matt was doing the sales pitch. And I hung out in the neighborhood for 90 minutes. And I think that eventually the guy signed on the dotted line just to get Matt out of his restaurant. Matt wore him down. But that was an exciting moment for us, absolutely.
And when you first turned this thing on and you had your first day, did it work flawlessly? Did it crash? What?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, and I remember I was running in and out of class because I was still a full-time student at that point, making little bug fixes here and there. Again, it was our first website ever, so it was very rough around the edges, to say the least. But it didn't go down, and we were still around on day 2, and then we were around on day 3, and so on. So. Exciting stuff.
And EatStreet was born around and kind of through, and some of your major customers were a major university in the United States, University of Wisconsin. What was that environment like as a student and also as an entrepreneur?
When I look back to the early days, the support that we received from the university, I mean, point number one just being, we launched the website, we all asked our professors if we could go in and, before class started, either put out flyers or have a brief 30-second announcement at the beginning of the class. And the professors were very supportive. I remember one of them saying, this is the entrepreneurship that we're really trying to foster at the university. So that was, kind of interaction number one. Interaction number two came when we were looking for more specialized services from the university that we couldn't necessarily do ourselves. And what I'm thinking of in particular is writing our terms of service, writing contracts with our restaurants, and the University of Wisconsin Law School through the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic picked us up, and we had all that legal work done for free. Then going forward even some more, when we entered the Burrell Business Plan Competition, I believe that's probably when I was introduced to you, John, and we got the mentorship from the business side so that we weren't 3 kids kind of running around aimlessly, but had excellent resources saying, this is worked in the past for other businesses. These are the strategies. These are kind of our insights. And it really accelerated the business just in a way that we couldn't have even imagined beforehand. So in general, the cool thing is it all kind of seems to tie up into this idea that the University of Wisconsin and Madison, Wisconsin in general, is a very entrepreneurial city. And you can kind of speak that language with anybody, whether or not they're a computer science professor that you're begging to talk to their class before class begins, or, in the case of you, as a business school professor who's adding insightful critiques to basically driving the business forward, everybody kind of unites under that umbrella vision, and that's just been great.
Now, do you have a mentor or several people that are giving you good advice through this?
Well, I would certainly say you're one of them, but we teamed up with Generator early on, the accelerator here in Wisconsin, and John, yourself, and Troy Vossler, Joe Kirkus have all been absolutely invaluable to us. The cool thing about a growing business is that we continue to have more and more introductions made by our mentors to more mentors. So the University of Wisconsin has an incredible alumni network all the way out to Silicon Valley, which is obviously kind of the mecca of these technology companies. And we've gotten valuable mentorship from everybody from Skype employees all the way up to Facebook employees and just about any other company that you can name. And that has just been great. So yeah, getting back to the original question, I would say we have tens, if not even 100 mentors who Matt or myself or Alex are in a regular communication with. And we wouldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for that insight.
Now, you mentioned just a moment ago, Silicon Valley is kind of the mecca of this kind of entrepreneurship. What's it like being in Wisconsin and competing with the mecca?
It's just different. So at this point, we've raised several rounds of investment, and every single time that we've been sort of encouraged or prodded or even given an ultimatum, you have to move out to Silicon Valley. And we've always felt like the right place for our business is right here in Madison. And the reason for that is that we can attract top-tier talent from companies like Epic right out of the University of Wisconsin with a fantastic computer science program. And we can do that while sort of making our name here in, both where the company grew up in and where the company continues to flourish. In the Valley, there are, it's a completely different set of resources available, a lot more capital, certainly a ton of talented individuals, but the entire process of growing a business does have a completely different kind of story to it, which isn't one as appealing to us. There's a lot more turnover within the companies as far as the staff goes. When it comes to sales and customer service, just the payroll itself would be really overwhelming and stifling compared to what we have here in Madison. And kind of our approach has always been, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're proud to be a Madison company, and we really want this story to begin and end right here in the Midwest, where all three of the co-founders are from, and the majority of the company still grew up, went to school, and stayed in this area.
So let's take a different tack for a moment. What do you think is the most valuable lesson you've learned so far as an entrepreneur?
So for me originally, I referenced even as a kid, putting together the Tinker Toys. It was always kind of a solo effort on my part. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy working with other people, but for me originally, I always kind of thought, I'm just gonna lower my shoulder and plow into this. And as the company grew, it became more and more apparent, obviously, that there are some tasks that are insurmountable to you as an individual that it takes working with a team on. And really learning to grow a team, to trust the team, and to kind of align the team to the common goal and then split out the tangible work that needs to be done to the team, for me, has been a real learning experience. And I always point to that as, I can no longer pull all-nighters and just, get from point A to point B. It takes an entire team effort, and that has been really educational for me. I'm sure that both of my co-founders would have different answers, but that's mine, personally.
And what advice do you have for someone who's aspiring to be an entrepreneur, whether they be a student or somebody who's not out of school?
I think that if you came down to it, we could have spent the last 5 years coming up with excuses that EatStreet wasn't ready to go live yet and receive orders for restaurants and really push the website out to the public. In the early days, it was, we don't really know enough about the technology, or we have to register the company. And I think that laundry list could continue until this day for reasons why you shouldn't jump into something. There's always going to be something. And my advice is just go for it. Jump into the deep end of the pool and learn how to swim. Because on that number one day, like you asked me if that day was smooth, that day wasn't smooth at all. But the longer that you put it off, the more excuses you're going to have. And honestly, we didn't come into this business as restaurant experts. We didn't come into this business as technology experts. We didn't come into this business as business experts. And I'm not claiming that we are today, But we've learned so much by just getting out there and doing it and throwing ourselves, in front of the bus, that I think that is my number one recommendation is just, whether or not you really think that you're ready, just take the leap of faith, because if you don't now, you won't tomorrow and you won't in 5 years.
Do you have a favorite quote or motto?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of my favorite ones is, I think it's Reed Hastings from LinkedIn says that a startup is like jumping off the edge of a cliff with a bunch of airplane parts and trying to build an airplane in free fall. And I think that that's a really good example in that we're trying to raise our company as quickly as possible. And as we're trying to grow this company at a rapid rate, it's always chaos, and it's always like, oh my gosh, that ground is getting closer. Like, we have to figure out how to, hit this next milestone, and that truly does kind of like embody the experience. I mean, it's not a tranquil experience. I mean, it's crazy and chaotic every single day, and there's always going to be something else like coming up on you. But I think that it also embodies like the excitement of the entire experience as well, and how great it feels when you're 6 feet from the ground and you put together your airplane and you don't hit. So yeah, that's my favorite quote.
So share with us some of the like the metrics, the numbers around EatStreet. Like, how many employees do you have? Like, how many restaurants do you serve? How many orders do you have? And let me know how you think about it in a day or a month or a year.
Sure. Well, we serve 15,000 restaurants nationwide. That's in 150 cities and almost every state in the United States. We have a map where we have little pins for every single one of our cities that we're in, and we've nearly got all the states. And it's a goal in 2015 to round that out and get like the remaining 4. As far as employees go, we have about 80 employees. Those are a mix between engineers and designers who work on the product, accounting and finance, marketing, who basically spreads the good word of EatStreet to the students and to the communities at large, gets people to use the product, sales, who are the ones that are going to the restaurants and saying, hey, this EatStreet product could really benefit you. And then just operations and logistics, because keeping 15,000 restaurants happy takes an entire team unto itself to keep the menus updated, to make sure that the restaurant's requests are being met, and basically that everything within the company is running smooth. As far as orders go, I can't give like the most specific numbers, but we have processed millions of orders, and that number is rapidly growing. I can say that the company continues year over year to process about 300% more orders than it did the previous year. And that's been a trend basically since day one, and we're a 5-year-old company.
That's incredibly amazing. Eric, thank you very much for taking the time today to share your insights with us as a career entrepreneur and about EatStreet. We've had the pleasure of hearing from Eric Martell, who is one of the co-founders of EatStreet, which is a restaurant ordering and support platform located in Madison, Wisconsin. My name again is Jon Eckhardt. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and this video is hosted by the Entrepreneur and Innovation Exchange.